Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back. I'm the Tilted Crown Gourmet. I'm super excited to be part of this collaboration with the Inquisitive Farm Wife and its Pumpkin Palooza 2025. Today I'm going to be doing a dish that I have loved for years since I had been traveling to Brazil. I used to go to Brazil about 4 to 5 times a year to visit my really good friend Vern. And on some of those trips, I would have Carne Seca na Moranga. However, I'm going to be doing Carne Seca na Moranga Royale because, of course, I have to do it a little bit different as this is the Tilted Crown Gourmet. The differences are I'm going to be doing individual servings. Normally, this is done family style, but I'm going to be doing this in individual servings. And I'm also going to be adding some basil oil as a garnish and probably some Parmesan tuile as well. Nevertheless, if you're ready, let's roll up those sleeves, let's get some prep done, and let's get cooking. To start, I had made Carne Seca and I will put a link in the description for that tutorial of how to make Carne Seca because I've done it on this channel before. Now, what I've done is I've soaked it overnight and I've changed the water 3 times. This is my Carne Seca. I've soaked it, changing the water 3 times. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna empty out this water. And I am going to fill this with water, and then I'm going to bring it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to drop it down to a simmer, and I'm going to let it cook for about an hour or until it's shreddable. Once it's shreddable, then I'll be able to shred my Carne Seca in order to utilize it in my dish. In the meantime, let's get our pumpkins together. So I have 3 small pumpkins. These are a little bit over a pound. However, preferably, I would have liked to have had them at a pound a piece. But you have to get what you can get. And these ranged from just over a pound to just over 2 pounds. So I want to go ahead and cut the top of our pumpkin off because this is how we're going to stuff it. We're going to be stuffing these. So there are going to be quite a few different links to this video because I'm going to link not only my Carne Seca video, but I'm also going to be linking my shallots or my crispy shallots that I make because I'm going to be utilizing those for garnish. I will also be linking my basil oil video that I did for my Bella Grace collections. Both the, actually the shallot I did with my Cuban coffee sauce recipe. But I'm going to be linking the recipe, the link in the description for both the shallot as well as the basil oil. Oh, not to forget the Carne Seca. Pull that out. I'm gonna get a bowl, so let's scrape out the interior. Now, we only want the fibrous parts and the seeds to be pulled out. We don't want to take out any of the meat. This step takes a little time, but it's not hard. And the actual wonderful part about this dish, it's actually it's not a difficult dish to make. It just takes a little bit of time. Now, if you do make your Carne Seca, well, of course, that does take a few days. However, if you want to skip making the Carne Seca, you can use corned beef as a substitute. After you've cleaned out your pumpkins, you're going to want to go ahead and oil them. Oil them, salt and pepper is my recommendation. Now, these pumpkins are sugar pumpkins. And so these are sugar pumpkins. I believe they're also called pumpkin pie pumpkins. So I'm gonna go ahead and give them a nice spritz of olive oil all the way around, and I'm gonna give it a rub. I want to make sure that we get the top as well. Now, this part varies from person to person, but some people will get their pumpkin and they will wrap it in tin foil. That is one way, or I'm going to do it my way, which I'm not going to wrap it in tin foil. I'm going to be putting these in for about 45 minutes or so at 350 degrees, which is about 185 degrees centigrade. I know you thought I almost forgot my salt and pepper, but I didn't. And another thing people sometimes do at this stage is some people will grate an onion, and they will get the grated onion and push it into the pumpkin as well. I don't do that. However, that is another way to make this dish. Put our lids on. And now we're gonna put these into the oven for about 35, 45 minutes. Another link that I think I'm gonna give you is the link to my pumpkin seeds. So there are gonna be lots of links in the description for this video. However, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the content. Hopefully this does give you some ideas about different dishes that you can do in the month of October or any time of year. However, pumpkins, of course, are more readily available this time of year. Off camera, I grated some garlic. As you know, I love garlic, so I did grate a lot of garlic. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and continue the prep for this particular dish. I'm going to go ahead and do our red bell pepper. I like red bell pepper, they're sweeter. I mean, I find them sweeter. Definitely much more sweet than the green. So we're gonna get our red bell pepper and let's dice it. We're gonna dice it. Now, one thing that you want to keep in mind is, as I've always said before, you want to try to keep your pieces about the same size. And don't forget, if there are some dishes that you would like to see featured on this channel, leave it in the comments. I do read all of your comments, and I usually reply to pretty much everybody. Please, if there's a dish that you would like to see featured on the channel, leave it in the comments, and if I make it, I'll give you a shout out. And a lot of people wonder, why do I cook dishes from around the world? Well, my little tagline at the end about your kitchen being your passport to the world, that's real. It is definitely something that I truly believe in, because if you don't have to ever go to another country to experience the wonders of the cuisines, I like to dedicate this channel to that pursuit of travel, even if you're only doing it from your kitchen. My flatmate, Gabriel, pretty much before he met me, he believed that the only spices were salt and pepper, for the most part. And I tried to open up his palate to be able to explore more diverse cuisines. And I actually even got him to travel to Thailand with me. And he thoroughly enjoyed that trip. Matter of fact, he went twice. And hopefully you've tried some of these recipes, and I really hope that they worked for you. I spend a lot of time trying to perfect these, and I want to try to make it where anyone can replicate what I do. Yes, there are some, like my chocolate cake, flourless chocolate cake with the mirror glaze, that are definitely a little bit more complicated. However, I do try to break my videos down in fashion that allows anyone to be able to follow along and reproduce my dishes. Now, in this dish, there is a Brazilian cheese that I'm not even gonna try to pronounce because I will butcher it so badly. Nevertheless, if you cannot get that cheese, or if you don't have the time to source it, then what you want to do is you could get sour cream and a little bit of, not sour cream, cream cheese, and a little bit of mozzarella, and that kind of replicates it a little bit, or mascarpone. You could substitute the mascarpone for the cream cheese and also get a very similar taste and texture to the original Brazilian cheese. One thing you want to remember as well with your pumpkin, you want to cook it until it's tender, but you still want it to be holding its shape. As far as your onion is concerned, I'm using a red onion, obviously for a little bit additional sweetness. However, a white or yellow onion for this dish is perfectly fine. One thing is I happen to have a large red onion, and it had been here for a little bit. And as I've said before, with today's prices, we can't allow things to be going to waste. And of course, get your leftover veggies, put them in a sealable bag, place it into your freezer, and you have the makings of stock for later. So I've done a few things. So this is going to go on the top of our dish, and this is Gruyere and Parmesan. That's going to go on top of our dish. So after we complete it, we're going to put it back in the oven under the broiler to allow it to get nice and crispy, and that's going to be on the top. In my sauce, to help with that balance of flavors, we're going to have Parmesan, a little bit of mozzarella, our mascarpone, and of course we're going to have our heavy cream. Our pumpkins are out of the oven, and it's time to make our filling. So in the meantime, I had pulled out the Carne Seca and I've shredded it. I used 2 forks and shredded it, and our Carne Seca is ready. Now, it did take a little bit longer than I anticipated. It took about 2 hours for our Carne Seca to be shreddable. However, it is ready. So to my pan here, I have added some butter, and I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil. The olive oil helps to raise the temperature, the burning point or the smoke point of our butter. We're going to melt our butter with our olive oil, and then we're gonna be adding in our onions and our bell peppers, and after that, we're gonna add in our garlic. Now, I have put this on high because I don't want to caramelize this. I want to soften it, but I'm only gonna be cooking this for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I may drop the temperature down a little bit because right now it's, like I said, it's high. I may put it at medium high. So we have our onions and our bell peppers in, and we want this to soften. So I'm getting a little bit of fawn, which is perfect. But so now I'm going to be adding in my tomatoes with their accumulated liquids, as well as my meat. And what we want to do is we want to cook this until all of our juices have cooked out. So our liquid has cooked out. So we're going to go ahead and add in our cream along with our mascarpone and give that a little bit of a mix. Now we're going to add in our Parmesan and our mozzarella. Remember, in the sauce is Parmesan and mozzarella. And we want to cook this until it's nice and thick and gooey. We want to make sure that all of that cheese gets melted. One thing I didn't tell you, this dish can be made with shrimp. And it's absolutely fantastic with shrimp as well. So this dish can be made with shrimp, and it's actually quite a bit quicker if you make it with shrimp. Want to give it a taste. Before I put any salt and pepper, I want to go ahead and give this a taste. lovely. But even though we do have a lot of cheese, it still needs salt and pepper. Now it's time to stuff our pumpkins. Make sure you get some sauce in there. A little parsley. And you can actually just add it into your main dish if you want. Prevents you from having to put it in the pumpkin. But it's a fresh herb, so we want to definitely make sure that we put it in right at the end. Then we want to make sure that we top with our cheeses. This is our Gruyere, followed by our Parmesan. I'm gonna set these tops over here, and we are gonna place this in the oven. And this is on broil. There we have it. Want to go ahead and top those with some shallots. So like I said, I'll leave a link to the original recipe on making these deep fried shallots, which is an amazing garnish. And there you have it. Absolutely fantastic.
Remember, your kitchen is your passport to the world, allowing you to explore diverse cultures and cuisines right from home as you explore new flavors and techniques. And as always, bon appetit.